And now to respond. Lifeguards are prepared ahead of time on how they would respond if someone needs help. They learn CPR ahead of time. They learn first aid techniques before they ever begin their job as a lifeguard. And so we, as volunteers, need to be ready. We need to prepare. And we need to know how we will respond before something happens. We encourage every church to have a Safe Sanctuaries team. Not just one person, and not just the pastor, but a team of people who will be willing to work through and to think through possible scenarios that might happen in the church. Again, we hope that nothing ever happens. But in case something does, we want you to be prepared and to be ready to respond appropriately and effectively. Now, how you respond will depend on the situation. But we want you to be prepared for any situation that might come about. One situation that may happen is that the victim shares about the abuse. The person may come to a counselor, a youth counselor, or maybe their Sunday school teacher or the pastor, and may say, "Can you keep a secret?" You should respond as a volunteer that you cannot keep any confidence if harm has been done or is being done. If that person is about to harm someone else or to harm themselves, that you must respond to that appropriately. And so if a person shares with you firsthand, then you must respond to that abuse. Also, if you see a situation happening, or if you hear a secondhand report, it doesn't matter. In each case, you must take that report seriously. We advise that you begin taking notes as soon as possible to record the details that you have received so that it's clear in your mind what is taking place. You are not to be the investigator. You are not to be the one that decides whether this abuse has or is taking place. But these notes are only to serve as to how you are to respond most effectively. You must respond, though. And so a part of responding for a lifeguard is often CPR. We want to use those letters to instruct us on how we are to respond. First of all, we must call. We must report if we suspect, if we see, or if we are told by a child or a youth or vulnerable adult the abuse is taking place. This includes our clergy. We are required by our discipline to keep confidentiality except in the cases of abuse. We ask that you report the abuse, that you report up the line, as we say, that you allow the pastor to know, the district superintendent, and the appropriate people so that they can respond to this abuse. You will see the number for the Kentucky Child Protection. Again, they will do the investigation. You do not have to investigate. You can call anonymously if you want to. At the last church that I pastored, I came in one Monday morning and there was a message on the answering machine. It was from a man who did not leave his name or number, and he was accusing one of his neighbors of abusing their daughter. And he said, "Something must be done about this." I did not know the person who was being accused. I did not know the daughter who was supposedly being abused. I did not know the name of the man who left the message, but I knew of a situation, and I knew that I must report it. So I called the appropriate authorities and let them know of what I had learned. A few days later, I called them back to find out what they had learned about that situation and if it had been investigated. And I was relieved to find out that, in fact, the man who left the message was an angry neighbor who wanted to seek revenge on his neighbors and had left that message not only on our church's machine but on other local businesses in our community. That several people had actually reported that same incident. They had investigated and found that it was not true. That, in fact, the young girl and her parents were not involved in an abusive situation. So how do we handle when a person reveals to us that they are being abused? How do we handle if we suspect abuse taking place? You will find on our website a handout about this, but let me just briefly outline some steps that you can take. First of all, the staff person or the volunteer who either observes the alleged abuse or which the alleged abuse is reported to, they need to immediately let the person who is in charge of the ministry know about this abuse. And upon receiving this information, the person who is in charge of the ministry or that activity shall call the Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Family Services. You will find that number here on the screen as well. You can also call our local Kentucky State Police, and they will get in touch with the people who need to be contacted. You also need to let your pastor or immediate staff supervisor be informed of this situation. Then the person who is in charge of the ministry or activity should gather as much factual information, such as the name of the victim, his or her address, and any family information that may be pertinent to the situation. If the accused is actually the pastor or appointed clergy, whether it's a supply pastor or it could be a member of the pastor's family, the allegations should immediately be reported to the district superintendent. The district superintendent should immediately report that to the proper authorities, and they will take responsibility and act accordingly to establish rules in the Book of Discipline of how to respect the pastor, but also to follow through with the appropriate actions that need to be taken. The bishop's office will be informed of this situation, and immediate action will be taken. We want to remind you that all clergy are included in mandatory reporting as required by our Book of Discipline, as well as required by the state law of Kentucky. It says in our Book of Discipline that all clergy in the United Methodist Church are charged to maintain all confidences. That includes confessional confidences, except for in the cases of suspected child abuse or neglect, or in cases where mandatory reporting is required by civil law. After a person in charge of the ministry has reported this suspected abuse to the proper authorities, the appointed clergy, whether that is the supply pastor or the pastor in charge, is to report immediately to the district superintendent. If the district superintendent is unavailable, the incident should be reported to our bishop's office here in Crestwood. The person in charge of the ministry or the event in which the abuse has been reported must keep a written report of the steps that were taken by the church in response to the reported abuse. The report should be brief and contain only factual information relevant to the situation. This report should be kept in a secure place. We ask that it be written in ink or that it be typed in order that it be prevented from being changed. And now, to have a response plan in place. We ask that you consider a plan of how to respond that is quick and compassionate, but also that is unified in regards to the alleged incident of abuse. All allegations will be taken seriously. And in the case of reported or observed abuse, there should be full cooperation with all those who are investigating the situation. Often, there may be media who is involved in the situation. Local radio stations or TV stations may appear on the church's doorstep asking for responses to the allegation. We ask, if that is the case, that you immediately contact your pastor and your district superintendent, and that you would cooperate with the media, but that you would find one person who would serve as the official spokesperson, and that they would be the ones who respond to the media's questions. We have a response team here at the conference office that can help you in responding to the media. If the situation were to happen at the church, we ask that immediately, with dignity and respect, that you remove the person who is being accused from having any further involvement with children or youth or vulnerable adults until the allegations of the abuse have been investigated. Details of the allegation of the abuse should not be discussed with the accused at the time of removal. If there is removal of a staff member or a volunteer from any activity or ministry, we ask that we do that with care so that it's done in a discreet manner, recognizing that there will be an investigation, whether it's a state or church authorities or even both of those. Another step is to remember that if the person who has been allegedly accused of the abuse or exploitation is a member of the church serving as a volunteer or as a church staff person, that person should be required to refrain from all ministry activities and events that involve children and youth and vulnerable adults until that incident has been fully resolved by the appropriate state authorities and by those in accordance to our Book of Discipline. Another step is to notify the parents of the victim immediately and to take whatever steps necessary to assure the safety and the well-being of that child or youth until the parents arrive. Sometimes the person who is being accused of the abuse is one or both of the parents. If that is the case, we ask that you would follow the advice of the authorities concerning the notification of the parents and of others. Again, we want to make sure that we take all allegations very seriously, that we reach out to the victim and to the victim's family, that we show care and support to help prevent further hurt in their situation, that we extend whatever pastoral resources are needed, and that we remember that the care and the safety of the victim is our first priority. We are to respond in a positive and a supportive manner to the victim and to the victim's family. Last, the church should be a place where we provide a supportive atmosphere to all of those who are being affected by this situation. We do that by providing objectivity and empathy that we create a climate that is not filled with gossip or rumors, but a place where healing can truly take place for all of those involved.